So, yeah, there are some parts of an essay that you can memorize and use regardless of what the essay question is. I think the biggest one is in the essay introduction. Um, when you introduce your text for the first time, my teacher told us that we should always give a brief description of the text, not like a blurb that outlines the story so much as it introduces the characters and the themes and the context, all of which are important parts that the markers are looking at to see that you've understood. So yeah, I kind of practiced writing my best little introduction for each text that I did. I got my teachers to read over them and say, yeah, this is something, for this little section, I would give that full marks. And then I just really worked on memorizing them, because those sentences, it doesn't matter what the essay question is, whatever it's asking. If you're doing, mod A, the textual conversations, for example, you're always going to have to introduce your text. I did The Tempest and Hagseed. So you're always going to have to say, The Tempest, written by William Shakespeare, give a brief overview, Prospero on an island, and magic represents imprisonment. Like, you're always going to need to talk about that. And that's just a way to save some time in your exams. If you have these sentences memorized, if you get your teachers to look over them and your teachers tell you, yeah, like if this was in an essay and the rest of the essay matched that quality, I'd give that top marks. Then you've got a part of your essay that you're going to score well on, and that you don't have to sit chewing your pencil in the exam trying to come up with. And I think there are a few other parts in your essays that you can do that for. Pretty similar with when you introduce the themes that you'll be talking about. Most texts, they're going to have quite a few different themes, but normally the main 3 or 4, you can work them with any question. That's what I did. I chose the themes that I knew I could work for kind of anything that was asked of me. And I then came up with a sentence that introduced those themes and why they were important. And so I then came up with a list of quotes as well for each of those themes, for each of those texts, and obviously memorize the quotes. But a lot of the time I was able to actually memorize the sentences that I used the quotes in. I really like embedding quotes in sentences. I think it works really well. It shows that you have a real knowledge of the text, even if you don't have a great one. It's kind of a bit of a trick, if you do it well, obviously. You can't just chuck in one quoted word and hope for the best.
Just define what you mean by embedded quote, because I think people would be interested to know, like, what do you mean by embedded? Is that just normal use of a quote?
I guess the way it was explained to me by my teacher, when you're in year 7 and you're writing an essay and you're going to give a quote that's a literary technique, say, her eyes are as blue as the sky, and you're going to be using that quote. The real elementary way of using that quote in the essay would be saying, the quote, her eyes were as blue as the sky, is a simile that represents blah, blah, blah. And, at least if that's all you can do on the spot, under pressure, you're still including quotes from the text. You're still showing some knowledge of the text. But to get those band 6 responses and that you have a really thorough understanding, you'd take only parts of the quote and embed it into your sentence. So say, I'm just trying to think of
I think you've got it. Basically, the main way you'd use a quote is as evidence of a technique, and then you're suggesting that later in the sentence, when you're talking about that pre-existing quote, you're actually then, instead of using your own words at times, you replacing your own words with a word from the text as well. So there's another kind of quote integrated in the sentence, and it doesn't need a technique attached to it. It's more just replacing what you were going to say, because and it has a certain sophistication by doing that because you're engaging with the text more.
Yes, exactly. I think I got to a point, like, I apologize, I can't, give a direct example with it off the top of my head, but I got to a point where I pretty much only embedded my quotes. I don't think once in the exam did I just write the full quote and then say, this metaphor shows that. And I think it pretty clearly really helped my essays. It gives you that sophistication that markers are looking for if they want to give you a band 6. And the thing is, with those embedded quotes, you can memorize some of those sentences where you embed the quotes. I that's what I did. I basically reused all the essays that I wrote for assignments, through the year, the internal assignments, and I'd look at that, and I'd look at examples of where I'd written a really great sentence that really explored the quote, embedded it really well, and really talked about the themes. And I basically then just memorize all those sentences. Like, they would go onto my cheat sheet of what I need to memorize for this exam. As long as you remember that you do need to be flexible, if you are just memorizing an entire essay and you don't alter it for the question they give you, that's not going to get you good marks. You could have the best embedded quotes in the world, but if you're not addressing the question, you're not going to get a band 6 or even a band 5. And so I'd kind of take the sentences that either had room for me to weave in whatever the essay question was, or that kind of applied quite broadly. Maybe they were just talking about the theme, and I'd then be able to add a sentence after that linked it to the question. And by doing that, I was able to kind of roughly plan out each essay for each module before I even got into the exam hall. And that means that you've got so much more time to plan your approach, to break down, what is this question asking me? Okay, I've got all my content, I've got all my quotes, I've got all my, author, data publication. So now I just need to work out, where do I fit, where do I fit all my linking sentences and the question into this? And that way, I just kind of write out everything I'd memorized and then just edit it in the example whilst people are still trying to come up with their, how do I wrap up this conclusion? And then I can go, okay, do I need to add a few more links to the question here? Because basically by writing it like that, you just need to come up with your thesis in the exam, your question specific thesis, and otherwise you have your essay ready to go. And that way, I didn't run out of time. I was able to read through my essays once I was finished, and I was confident because I'd had my teachers look at these essay plans, and I'd get them to give me a few different questions, and I'd apply that plan to a few different questions and hand that in, and they'd look at it and say, this is within this mark, this range. And you can go into the exam knowing that you've got a really good quality base essay. And so long as you can have a thesis that works really well with the question, you've got a top scoring essay ready to go. And it eliminates a lot of stress going into the exam hall.